Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. I just like to explain what's happening in this coming up video. And so basically my friend Ben and I, for a school project, we debated the topic of abortion, which is a very controversial topic nowadays. And we discussed our different viewpoints because he was pro-choice, I'm pro-life. And we used factual and biological evidence to say our point of views and say what we think is right and why we think it's right. And so I hope you guys enjoy. And side note, sorry about the camera quality and video quality. We had to record this on a school computer because it was a school project. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy.
So abortion, one of the most controversial topics that is to talk about. The definition of abortion is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, and we both have different positions on it. I am personally pro-life.
I'm pro-choice.
And we're just going to basically debate and try to persuade you why our points are correct.
Yeah. So I'm going to begin off with my introduction. So basically, I feel like that an abortion is a basic right for every woman to have, and to infringe upon that should be against the law, which it is in multiple court cases, findings up to the Supreme Court. And we shouldn't just be taking that right away because there's many complications and reasons behind a person wanting an abortion.
I'm personally pro-life because I believe that the baby also has a right, and the baby also has a choice, and that we shouldn't just murder a child, because it is a child due to scientific research, that we shouldn't just murder a child and take their life away because we just don't want them, or we don't think we can care for them, because there is 4 different choices for a reason. There's, I'll state them later, but there's 4 choices, because I'm pro 4 choices, and one of those choices I do not believe is abortion.
Okay. So, I would like to start off with mentioning Roe versus Wade, which was the, in 1969, a woman tried to get an abortion in Dallas, Texas, and she lied about being raped so she could get an abortion because she was on her 3rd child and she didn't want to raise another one. And so, but then an investigation began on the fake rape allegations, and then the case went to court. And then it went all the way up to Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court ruled that it was under the 14th Amendment private right of a woman to have an abortion, and is completely legal in the 1st trimester. In the 2nd trimester, it's legal to certain degree, like medical conditioning or whatever. And in the 3rd trimester, it has to be very specific reasoning, and it has to be like serious medical cause.
That is a good point, and I can see how you see that, but I'd just like to say that Roe versus Wade was passed in 1973.
Yeah.
We had significantly less research on ultrasounds were very rare, and what we could see on ultrasounds were only up till about the end of the 2nd and the 3rd trimester, and what you could see was it was hard to determine whether or not it was life. But now, through scientific research, we can tell that that baby is a developing, growing fetus that is developing into a child. And I believe that it is murder to kill that child, and because of how we've seen it, how we see it now, as to where we've seen it in 1973 when Roe versus Wade was passed, I don't think that we could keep the same stance on that, because we've improved so much. We can see more through those ultrasounds and through different variations of ways that we can see through that pregnancy, whether it's now we are finding ways to actually see the x-ray of that fetus.
Very good point. However, I would like to say that it also depends on when a person thinks that the embryo is alive, because some people say it's at conception, some people say it's during the 2nd, maybe 1st trimester, and we're not really there's different standpoints. Well, from this website, it says that, so in the 1st month, there's a heartbeat, but the problem is that one of the characteristics of life is having a metabolism and breathing. Well, the lungs may not develop until maybe the third month, or like at the end of the first trimester. So you have about a 2-month period where it doesn't complete every single characteristic of life, and it's still fully dependent on the mother. So you're saying it's alive, but also kind of isn't.
That is a great point, and I see how you see that because, as you said, the lungs aren't fully developed until about the end of the second trimester, being the third trimester. And as I see how you see that, that's not life. A person that's brain dead doesn't always have every single characteristic of life and is being fully supportive of life support. But if that person was brain dead and you knew that they were going to be fully recovered and perfectly fine in 9 months, do you think it's okay? Because they don't have a stated will or anything that says that they're okay just to kill them. They have nothing. They didn't make their will yet. They were too young. Say, 11-year-old child was brain dead, but you knew that he was going to be his brain was going to be fully functional and he was going to be perfectly fine with all his characteristics and traits of life. But he doesn't have them right now. But he will have them in 9 months. Do you think it's still okay to kill that child? That 11-year-old child?
Well, that brings up an interesting point, but you also gotta know that it's not perfect situations like that. So if you knew that it was going to be okay in 9 months, being brain dead, so the analogy is okay, but at the same time, like doctors even have standards where they're like, oh, if the person's brain dead for this month and we get no response from him, they pull the plug. And they even ask the family if they want to pull the plug early. So even in the similar cases, the same kind of thing happens, keeping with the analogy. And so if you were to go through the pregnancy, so that's like a lot of strain on the mother because you're carrying a baby and there's no way to get around that. That's a lot of stress for someone. And if they don't necessarily want to go through that, why make them go through that? And it's just a very hard time for that mother, especially if there's not someone else. So for example, a teenager gets pregnant and but then they're forced out. They could get bullied. It's very emotional. So it's kind of how you're going to support the mother as she tries to go through that pregnancy.
Well, see, there is many different financial standpoints as people can't financially support themselves, but there is many companies now that have been created because of pro-life organizations to help their mothers, so they don't have to go through that. And then, as I said about those 4 choices that I was talking about earlier, I am pro-choice. I'm pro 4 choices. I am pro contraception, which is having sex and having another child. I am pro-delivery, which is being able to have that child and keep that child. I am pro-adoption, which is being able to keep that child, but have that child, and then once you have that child, you didn't kill it. You did nothing wrong, and all you're doing is giving a family that may not be able to have a child or may want to help another child that maybe can't be helped and cared for, to give them that care. Because if you look at it, the majority of newborn babies that are adopted is higher than the ones that aren't. I think it's about a 70 to 80% ratio that are adopted. It fluctuates on the year, but about 135,000 newborn babies are adopted every year because people want to adopt a newborn child. They want to be able to raise a child as their own, but then also help them because they can't be helped. So there are alternative ways to just abortion, and you can't just say that abortion's the only way because of these issues. And yes, they may have to carry it with that 9 months, but I believe that their choice whether to have that child or not ended at contraception. When they had sex and they had that child, they got rid of their entire, they got rid of that choice whether or not to have that child, because now they have to have that child unless for medical reasons they can't.
Well, see, when you said they give up the right at having sex, the problem is that the Supreme Court interpreted it at the 14th Amendment as a right no matter what. So it's same thing for an attorney, even though it's all the evidence is pointing against you, you're still rightful for attorney. It's got 100 people saw you shoot a man dead, you still have an attorney. So it's if you still have sex, you still have the right towards getting an abortion.
But what about that child's right? You have a living child that is able to, that has a heartbeat, it has fingernails, toenails, that has a genetic code that gives it its hair color, its eye color, skin color, its eyebrows, it's how long its eyelashes are going to be, how tall it's going to be. It has every single one of those little genetic codes in its body that are going to create its entire life. And you're just deciding to get rid of that child because you believe it's your right to kill an innocent person. That's the same thing as just killing that 11-year-old boy that's brain dead. That's the same thing as taking him apart limb from limb, as they do in abortions. Taking him apart limb from limb and crushing his skull so he can be dead. Or poisoning the child. So it takes about 48 hours for that child to slowly, basically suffocate on its own amniotic fluids. To suffocate on them. To slowly kill itself with what it's using to survive. And or you could talk about where they have a C-section, where they take the baby out and then they decide they don't want it, and that baby might be kicking and screaming and crying sometimes, and they decide to inject it or crush its skull, or maybe not put it on the life support it needs so it can just die because the mother doesn't want the child. So you're saying that if your mother doesn't want you, she can just kill you.
Well, we're heading towards the 11-minute mark, so I think we're going to wrap up with conclusions. So, basically, even though it's been a long time since Roe v. Wade decision was made, I still feel like that it should still stand because it's still the interpretation of the Constitution and all the amendments along with it. And also the fact that even though there may be other options, some options just like, for example, foster care. A lot of kids go through foster care, and approximately 17,000 of them didn't find a family and aged out. And so you may say there's other options, but sometimes other options just may not even be the best choice. And also, this entire topic depends on when a life begins to technically to what a person believes, so it's a very controversial issue.
And as you have made good statements throughout this entire time, I still believe that it's still a life, it's still a murder, it's still the same as that brain dead child that you know for a fact scientifically is going to be okay in 9 months. And I believe that with the Roe v. Wade situation, it's the same thing as it was with slavery. We made a law, and we aren't accepting what we made was wrong. Just like in slavery, we let people have to go through pains and racism and discrimination because of their skin color, and we wouldn't change that law because we didn't want to be wrong. It's the same thing with abortion. People just don't want to be wrong, and they won't kind of let that happen. And then I'd also like to pull up this chart I have and just show you how you guys can't see it, but I'm sure if you just look up fetal development, you could find a chart that's similar. But you can see how the baby's growing, how the baby has fingernails, toenails by just the second week. How the baby is developing completely and is gaining more experience, the baby's learning. By 4 weeks, it has a brain. So by 4 weeks, it can learn and it can hear and and then it eventually begins to actually blink, which we actually can't. It doesn't open its eyes, but it's as a blink, like we close our eyes. Yes. So the child is still a living thing, and it's the same as that brain dead child that is 11 years old, as if we would just pull the plug. Anyways, enjoyed this chat, and
So guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And go check Ben's socials down in the description because he was a big help, and even though we disagreed on this, he is a good friend. And again, just thank you guys so much for watching. And if we can get this video to 30 likes, I will post a video saying my point of view on the pro-life and giving you factual evidence, giving you emotional evidence, giving you ways to help debate abortion better in your own lives when the topic comes up. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys.